Just look at this number, 2,000 to 1. That is the staggering volume ratio between a human egg, the female gamete, and a human sperm, the male gamete. At the exact moment of fertilization, the diameter of the egg is more than twice the entire length of the sperm, tail and all. To put that into perspective, if the sperm were a tiny little rowboat, the egg would be a massive, sprawling cruise ship. It's a physical dichotomy that's honestly kind of hard to wrap your head around, especially when you remember that both cells are bringing the exact same amount of genetic material to the table.
So why does this massive size gap even exist? What evolutionary forces drove one cell to become a microscopic, hyperfast delivery vehicle and the other to become this massive stationary mothership? Well, in this explainer, we're going to explore the epic evolutionary design differences between these two cells, the perilous journey they take, and how their radically contrasting designs perfectly orchestrate the beginning of a new life.
Part 1. The true definition of sex.
Okay, let's dive into this. To really understand what's going on, we first need to strip away some common misconceptions and look at a concept called anisogamy. Biologically speaking, males and females aren't actually defined by physical appearance or behavior. They're defined entirely by gamete size. While some simpler organisms have isogamy, where the fusing cells are identical in size, human reproduction, along with most plants and animals, is defined by anisogamy. It's a strongly bimodal distribution. By definition, males produce the small, highly mobile gametes, and females produce the large, nutrient-rich, immotile gametes.
And this creates the ultimate biological face-off. On one side, you've got the stripped-down, streamlined male delivery vehicle. It literally has one job: deliver the paternal DNA. On the other side, you have the massive, fully stocked female mothership, which provides not just the maternal DNA, but all the cellular machinery and nourishment required to sustain life. They are playing two entirely different games to achieve the exact same goal.
Part 2. Sperm. Built for speed.
Let's shift our focus to the male gamete first. This tiny cell is engineered for a single, incredibly perilous mission. To be this tiny, the sperm strips away absolutely everything unnecessary. It carries a haploid payload, just 23 chromosomes. And to fit this DNA into a microscopic, streamlined head, it actually throws out standard, bulky DNA packaging proteins and replaces them with tiny ones called protamines. This compacts its cargo a staggering 6 times over. Behind that tightly packed head is a midpiece loaded with mitochondria. Those are the ATP engines powering the cell, and a whip-like flagellum that propels it forward. It's essentially just a biological motor strapped to a genetic payload.
And it absolutely needs all that speed and efficiency, because the odds, they are brutal. A sperm propels itself at speeds of about 34 micrometers per second. Yet out of the nearly 200 million sperm introduced in a typical ejaculation, only about 10,000 even enter the uterine tube. And fewer than 100 out of 200 million, remember, will actually survive the journey to reach the isthmus where fertilization takes place. The female reproductive tract is an incredibly harsh environment, actively filtering out all but the absolute best swimmers.
Part 3. The egg. The mothership. Now let's look at the female gamete, which takes the exact opposite evolutionary strategy to ensure survival. The egg relies on its massive volume. Because it has to support the developing embryo for nearly a week after conception, it's essentially a fully stocked survival bunker. It carries a huge payload of nutrients, organelles, and genetic programming. Interestingly, it waits in a specialized state of suspended animation, specifically metaphase of meiosis II, just awaiting the stimulus of fertilization. And it's heavily fortified, surrounded by a thick glycoprotein envelope called the zona pellicula and an outer protective layer of follicle cells known as the corona radiata.
And this brilliantly illustrates the heavy lifting the egg does post-conception. As the textbook source notes, the egg is entirely responsible for the cellular infrastructure of the new life. The sperm brings half the blueprints, but the massive egg, it provides the other half of the blueprints, plus the construction crew, the building materials, and the factory itself.
Part 4. Hazards of the journey.
But this highly orchestrated process doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It happens in a potentially toxic environment. Both from inside the body, like immature spermatozoa or activated white blood cells generating reactive oxygen species, and from outside, from things like cigarette smoking, poor diet, and environmental pollutants. Together, these unleash a storm of oxidative stress and inflammation. It creates a highly dangerous, self-sustaining cycle of cellular damage. Because the tiny sperm has stripped away all its natural antioxidant defenses in exchange for speed, it is incredibly vulnerable here. This self-amplifying cycle causes lipid peroxidation, which ruins the sperm's membrane fluidity. ATP synthesis drops, destroying their ability to swim, and the genomic damage literally fractures their DNA, which we can track with the 8-OHDG biomarker. And here's a really fascinating twist. A healthy, young egg actually possesses some innate capacity to repair the sperm DNA damage during embryogenesis. The massive mothership is built to fix some of the tiny delivery vehicle's cargo. How cool is that?
Part 5. The ultimate fusion.
Let's move to and see how this builds. So what happens when the survivors of this arduous journey finally reach their destination? Well, when these gametes finally meet, it triggers a highly specific biochemical cascade. First, the sperm undergoes capacitation in the female tract. That's a functional maturation that uncovers vital receptors. Next is the acrosome reaction, leading to membrane fusion between the sperm and egg, which finally triggers oocyte activation, waking the massive egg from its suspended animation.
Step 2, the acrosome reaction, is essentially a microscopic boss fight. Even though only one sperm will fertilize the egg, dozens of sperm are required to succeed. They have to bind to receptors and release protein-digesting enzymes from their heads, specifically hyaluronidase and acrosin. Working together, this squad of sperm digests a path through the egg's tough outer layers, the corona radiata and the zona pellucida, just so a single intact sperm can make contact with the oocyte membrane.
The second that single sperm breaches the membrane, the egg deploys a brilliant instantaneous defense mechanism called the fast block to polyspermy. It is absolutely essential that no other sperm enter because extra chromosomes are fatal to the embryo. Instantly upon fusion, specialized ion channels open. Sodium ions rush in, instantly shifting the electrical charge of the egg membrane in a process called depolarization. This electrical shield is immediately followed by an internal release of calcium ions from the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. And here's where size matters again. Because of its huge volume, the egg can store the massive amounts of calcium needed to pull off this instantaneous reaction, permanently shutting the door on all remaining sperm.
So the crucial point is this. We have two radically different evolutionary designs: the stripped-down, hypercompacted, highly motile sperm, and the massive, nutrient-dense, heavily shielded egg. Yet they complement each other perfectly. By bringing together 23 chromosomes each, they restore the normal diploid number of 46 chromosomes in a brand new single cell called a zygote. It's the very first step of a human life.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought based on what we've just learned. We now know the massive egg has the incredible ability to actually repair microscopic DNA damage brought in by the vulnerable sperm. So if researchers can fully unlock the secrets of this maternal repair machinery, could this hold the ultimate cure for unexplained infertility at a macro level? It's a truly thrilling frontier in reproductive science. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this incredible cellular journey today.